Hello, this is Anna Pacheco with SantaFe101.com, your real estate source for Santa Fe and New Mexico. My guest today is Carol Hamilton of Keller Williams Realty. Carol, do I have your permission to record this interview?
Sure you do.
Oh, terrific. And I know, and I want to thank you. You've been a huge supporter of mine. I know you've come to my lectures. I think you've been very supportive of my work as a historian here in Santa Fe. So thank you for your support. And really this next 20 minutes is just the opportunity to let people know about you. Tell us what's going on in the real estate market here during this really crazy time that we're living in. And so take it away, Carol.
Well, it is crazy times, and I really do have to say I'm so proud of the real estate industry on how they stepped up to the forefront and pretty much taught businesses how to do COVID protocol. And, of course, there's nothing that changes without a document to follow it. So there's new COVID documents that would need to be signed and understood for open houses and homes that are currently on the market.
And I think in the beginning, wasn't it like in the very beginning, like probably for the first 6 weeks, nothing was being seen, right? I mean, it didn't the realty industry kind of shut down in the very beginning of this?
Yeah, well, the offices were shut down. And so there was nobody going into the office, but most brokers have a home office anyway. So the things that we need from our office typically are just support staff, copy machines, conference areas, those kinds of things.
But were people
Well,
actually showing houses in the very beginning of the pandemic?
I don't know if they were or not.
But now you do have to.
They could have. There was no law against it, and then the governor came up with kind of not a law against it, but a information stage around COVID protocol, where first of all, the governor was asking everybody, all the travelers here, to have quarantined themselves for 14 days once they come to New Mexico. So that during that time, there was a lot of non-showings.
Well,
And
I
then,
know
of course, the
I was just going to say, as a tour guide,
3D, right, yes.
as a tour guide, I had to become, it's called New Mexico certified. Have you had to do that? Where I had to take all these courses online about safety protocols and sanitizing things. Did our realtors?
No, we didn't have to take the course, but we did. Each broker of the brokerage were responsible for educating their brokers on how to be as sterile, really.
As careful as as many precautions. So tell me a little bit about how long have you been in Santa Fe?
I moved to Santa Fe in 1992, which we were having yet another recession. I didn't start real estate though. My background's in interior design. And then I started doing AutoCAD drawings. First got here for architects and builders, because AutoCAD was a whole language on its own. And a lot of those people had not learned it yet. And it took a long time to learn. So I did a lot of that work. And then I got really good at AutoCAD, and then I started building homes. So I had a custom home building company for up until 2008. And then my 4 spec houses that were on the market, that was another little spin on the real estate community. Because then all of a sudden we were taking classes on short sales and learning how to go through foreclosures and what the bank wanted, and how to help the people, how to really help the people that were going through these horrible situations of losing their home. So then again, too, it was up to the brokerage to educate their brokers on short sales and foreclosures and that kind of thing. But we were all taking classes then. My spec houses did sell just in the nick of time, and I did lose one to foreclosure. So I got to go through that experience, which was an experience. So, and then, from 2008 until now, we've just seen the market steadily recover. And then, of course, COVID hits. Everybody freaks out. There's a lot of people that have lost jobs because of it. The government did step in on this one for a short time and offer immediate relief for a very short time. But it wasn't enough, I don't think. So the forecasters are saying that we're not going to see another wave of foreclosures, but I'm uncertain on how that can be with the amount of people that have lost jobs. So in the back of my mind, I think that there's going to be another wave of economic hardship due to the COVID implications in our city.
But are you seeing, I just from what I read in the local papers, we're seeing a lot of activity out of California right now. They're calling them climate refugees.
Exactly. The activity is people leaving California. That's exactly the activity. So there's a lot of activity on buyers that are here. And so California and Californians seem to have a little bit more money in their pocket than New Mexicans do. And so they are helping to increase the status quo, where we have just passed the $500,000 mark as the median price in Santa Fe County for a home. I think that's huge. I think
this is my hometown. It's really incredibly high. It's, you know, that is
incredibly high because most workers are barely minimum wage. Santa Fe isn't famous for a lot of high-paying jobs. There are some government jobs, but a lot of workers are making anywhere from, you know, $15 to $20 an hour. I would say that would probably be the average Santa Fe wage, and that's still only $36,000 a year. And if you're talking about a $500,000 home, you're talking about a $2,500 payment, mortgage payment, and that's high.
Well, that's why all of Santa Fe lives in Rio Rancho now. You know, all of my cousins and everybody.
Yes,
most of my relatives live here. Yes.
I am seeing that the properties like in the Espanola, Nambe, Pewaukee areas north of Santa Fe starting to get bought out too. Not the job seekers and the people that have the jobs in for the Los Alamos National Lab, but people like us that are having to move out farther from Santa Fe to afford a home. Now there's a lot that the city government is doing to try to curb the affordable housing dilemma here in Santa Fe by building, I'm sure you've seen these all brand new 3-story apartment type buildings
They're going up all over town, right? Yeah. And I had heard, even before the pandemic, I had heard that Los Alamos, the National Lab, was hiring a tremendous amount of people, and they didn't know where they were. There was no place to put them. There's no, you know, it's really tight up.
For the last year, because I live north of town, and I live in a neighborhood that's ideal for Los Alamos commuters, and that was happening last year.
Exactly.
Last year they hired 300 or more, maybe more. And you're right. It's just like, where are these people going to live? So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. So, you know, the builders, custom home building is up because there's no houses to be had. So people are opting to build custom homes. And that's good, but there's a lot of people that don't either have the time or have the money to do something like that too. So that's
and then land is scarce too. It's not like we have tons of land in the Santa Fe proper.
We are a little landlocked. That's a lot like Boulder, Colorado is landlocked in a way, and you can't go farther out. We could possibly go Pecos way. We could possibly, the 285 corridor is still, we could still do that, but then we have water issues. My friend has a house on the market right now that has no water. She lives in Madrid, and so she's been trucking in water, but we can't get financing for a buyer because the house has no water. And so we're in the Southwest, we're looking at those water issues too, along with our population growth. So It's a challenge. It's a challenge because there is a lot of, the population supports a lot of realtors because of the job situation. So when you move here, you either bring a job or you create one. And real estate is one of the things that is an option. It's $500 in 6 weeks to get a real estate license. So, and then it's about 15 years before you know what you're doing. So,
Well, I always tell
because
people,
you learn with every sale, and just like everything else, so by the time you've got 15 years, you're a pretty good broker, and you've probably seen just about everything that could happen and everything that could go wrong.
well, I always say to people that are visiting who take my tour, that the interesting thing about New Mexico is we're the only state in the union that has 19 distinct Indian pueblos. So much of this land belongs to the Indians. So we will never have the urban sprawl of a Phoenix, a Denver, or, we're never.
Exactly.
So that's the neat thing. We'll always be unique and beautiful, but that's why it's going to always be kind of on the high end. It's going to be expensive to live here because we don't have too many options. Plus, in Santa Fe, we have ordinances where you can't build too high up. You can't go up.
Right.
So so it's kind of, so anybody who's fortunate enough to live here, that's great. But for people who want to come here, that can pose a problem.
That's true too. And not only do we have building restrictions like that, but we also have green building restrictions that are adding cost to the price of a newly built.
Well, what is a green building restriction? What is that?
Well, it's not a designation, but a certificate that you need to get when you're building it has to do with air quality control. It has to do with how much air leaves the house during a blow test. They actually put a big fan on the door and calculate how much air you're losing or gaining through your windows and your fireplace, and even your electrical outlets have a vent on energy to be lost. So you get a rating, you get a HERS rating, and that tells you the lower the number is, the higher and energy efficient that your home is. So a 70 HERS rating is a really good, that's what you want to go for. And calculating how many windows you have, that kind of thing. So there's some other restrictions other than just building height restrictions, and those are our green code restrictions that are mandated in the city and in the county. So,
and that's a new thing.
Water.
That's a new thing now.
Well, we have to catch water. We have to bury cisterns on a house that's over 2,500 square feet. So the water coming off the roof doesn't really go back into the groundwater. You save it in your cistern, and you use it for landscaping. So that's a requirement. That's a requirement. So all those things cost money, and it adds about $5,000 to a home. So
well, that's something people should keep in mind.
Those of us that are fortunate to live here and have already bought a house here, I'm thinking, I bought my house. This house was built in 2003. And that was right when the market was starting to really climb. By 2006, we were seeing probably the most expensive that we have until today. Now today, after 2003, after the 2008 economic crash, and then now we're right back to the prices that we were right around 2006, and more so because of the lack of inventory, the lack of people that want to sell their houses. So, and that's why
do you go up to northern New Mexico? Do you sell out in the county?
I do. The line is drawn in Taos for MLS coverage. So I can service my MLS coverage, which is as far as Cochiti down that way, far as Las Vegas, and as far as on the border of Taos going north. And
Is there
that's the
is there
center.
an area that you could recommend to people watching this video that, an area to at least, consider if you're thinking of coming to New Mexico and Santa Fe? If Santa Fe can't be their first choice, what would you recommend as a second and then third choice?
Because everything's individual. If somebody's coming here for a rural area, somewhere maybe around Velarde, somewhere if they want green, if they want something near the river, which is somebody, that's a very a specific choice to move to New Mexico and want something near water. So, but I was in Velarde just yesterday, and the river runs right through there, and it was really all the leaves were at the very max, brilliant in their brilliance. So if they wanted something Santa Fe in this kind of a city population, I would probably have to say, Rio Rancho, Bernalillo, Placitas, and then furthering down, Las Cruces, if somebody wanted more warmer weather. And some of our demographics that are moving here are 60 plus. And when they move here, they realize they can't do the altitude. That happened to my mom. We're 7,000 feet in the air, and there's no air up here when you get up here. So if you've had any kind of breathing problems or lung issues or something like that, you never get used to it if you move to an elevation that's at 7,000 feet. So not only is it charming, and with the Indian Native American influence and the Spanish historical culture and all the wonderful things, there's other things here too that need to be considered, like the altitude and allergies. There's a lot of people that suffer from juniper allergies, and we have a large population of pinyon and juniper all around us. So,
and then also that we have 4 distinct seasons. Oftentimes people think our climate is similar to or the same as Arizona, and people don't understand that we are in the high mountain desert. It snows here. We have skiing 17 miles from the plaza. So that's what people
I used to live in Flagstaff, Arizona, and there was a lot of people that would say, "Oh, you're from Arizona. That's so hot." Well, Flagstaff gets twice the amount of precipitation and snow that Santa Fe does, and it is about the same elevation too.
Right.
And it is in Arizona.
But I came back here after living in New York for 16 years. This is my hometown, but I had my 2 children here. What a great place to raise kids. I mean, it does. There's the schools are even the public schools are good. It's not, we don't have a lot of the issues that you find in bigger cities. And so to raise a family here is fabulous. I ran a business here for 15 years. I was a publisher of a magazine, and there's some real positive elements in addition to all the beauty and all the things that we've done. But you're right. That's why I kind of feel bad in the sense that it's hard. It's so expensive for people to want to live here anymore. And that's why you don't move out of Santa Fe, until you die.
People that live here already, it's hard for them to move up.
You don't move up, you move out. You move up.
Yeah.
And when I say you move out, you're most likely moving to Rosario Cemetery. You're not
right.
moving, or sometimes
Rio Rancho.
Or sometimes people, they move to be closer to their children. If their children now live in Phoenix, that makes perfect sense, So there are people
a lot of those kinds of moves too. My neighborhood is a 400 house neighborhood, and we had 18 sales last quarter.
Wow.
Which means people are moving, and they're moving a lot of them are moving to be around medical care, even though we have top of the line medical care. My last client moved to a lower elevation and needing to be around the Veterans Administration. That's why they moved. My latest sale, the one that I've got going on right now, this is their second house that they're just letting go of because they weren't going to be able to come here this year because of COVID. And then instead of just keeping it another year and just coming up in the summertime, they just decided to let that go. So in my neighborhood, we have a lot of second homes.
And I have found also that people that have second homes, after they've done it, the novelty runs out, wears out, in the sense that there are no direct flights to Santa Fe. It's hard. If you're coming in from the East Coast, it's a whole day of traveling to get here.
Yeah.
So that's what I have heard from people that have second homes here, that after a while, the novelty wears out because it's just not easy to get here.
Right.
If it's, so those are some of the
Right.
issues. Yeah.
Right.
But, basically we're running low on time here. Is there anything you want to say? I can have you on a second time. I think I want to talk more about the building process and some of your experience there. But is there anything you want to say for this particular interview before we end?
Well, I would never try to talk anybody out of moving to Santa Fe. We still have homes in the $300,000 range that are nice. And so the purpose of this interview is not to scare anybody away from moving to Santa Fe. And it's a lovely town, and I highly recommend it. And I've loved every single minute I've lived here. I moved here from Flagstaff, Arizona, and I loved it there too. But I've made a life here and a career and built a home. And home building is not for the weak of heart. And if you have a shaky marriage, it's not for a marriage that is on shaky ground either. So you've got to be ready for the process. But it's a lot of fun to build a house. My favorite part is the excavation part, where they clear off the lot, and they're putting in the slab, and the house always looks so little, even on a big house, just because the slab and the walls go up, and then you can start putting in the interiors. Every single phase is just exciting and wonderful, and I love it. I love it. So anyway.
Well, thank you again for your afternoon. And always thank you for being my friend and for supporting what I try to do in Santa Fe. And look, I'm going to have you on a second time. We'll talk more about,
I love what you do. I have all your books.
Thank you. God bless you. Well, listen, okay. So again, thanks again,
Okay.
Carol Hamilton, Keller Williams Realty, and we'll be back on with you the next time. You take care.
Sounds
Thank you.
good.